Hello, everybody, and welcome to WonderCon 2021, No Tow Trucks Beyond Mars Coronavirus Edition, where we have just landed on Mars. We are so excited. This has got to be, I think, my fifth or sixth take of the introduction to this talk because I keep flubbing it. So bear with me, and I just want to share my excitement with you about landing Perseverance on Mars. You are here in this 4-kilometer diameter circle next to some very, very interesting terrain that we're going to go talk about. But first, let's talk to you about the crew and why we are here. We want to say thank you. We have been coming to WonderCon now for 6 years. Everybody here on the panel has done some amazing things and done some amazing discoveries. This is our way of saying thank you to you, the taxpayers, for letting us be nerds. I mean, there's no other way of saying it, but we do things that nobody in the world has done, and we couldn't have done it without your support. So we thank you, and this is our payback to you. We want to tell you stories of things that you don't normally hear about, but obviously the big elephant in the room is the landing on Mars. And so we're going to go talk about that with you today. But I'm going to go talk to you about how Perseverance landed on Mars, how we were able to get the accuracy of landing on Mars. Who are these people? First of all, I've been at JPL for 43 years, working on everything from infrared satellites to the Galileo mission, to things that go into orbit around Saturn and Jupiter. Right now I'm working on the human landing system. I was working on Mars sample return for a bit there. Shonte Tucker, our system engineer extraordinaire, currently the D&D lead for the 2020 Rover. She's going to get into that and how we got it working and all the instruments that are up and running for you. Rhonda, I've known for quite a while. She's doing some amazing things on future flagship telescopes, the HAB Exploration Observatory. Laura Kerber, our scientist extraordinaire, gets to go to alien deserts and extraterrestrial volcanoes, and she's going to show you some really, really interesting places on Earth that look a lot like they do on Mars. And Kobie, I've known for years and years on being a supervisor and a section manager of the mechanical engineering department. Okay, to boldly go where there are no gas stations. One-way light time can be a few minutes to a few hours, and so the slightest mistake can really completely ruin the mission. But when it works, man, it works. I'm going to show a video clip, and the previous version of this cut out my recording when I tried to play this clip. So I'm going to edit that in later on. So we'll go into the landing, and you guys can share what's going on. I will say this one thing. Notice that during the terminal descent, the spaceship looks like it's looking to the right, but what it's actually doing is it's steering toward the left and getting over to the proper landing spot. And then you'll see it correct and then come vertically down. Just pay attention to that as you get closer to the final stages of the descent.
We are starting the straighten up and fly right maneuver, where the spacecraft will jettison the entry balance masses in preparation for parachute deploy and to roll over to give the radar a better look at the ground.
Indicate chute deploy.
The navigation has confirmed that the parachute has deployed, and we are seeing significant deceleration in the velocity. Our current velocity is 440 meters per second at an altitude of about 12 kilometers from the surface of Mars.
Heat shield set.
Perseverance is now slowed to subsonic speeds, and the heat shield has been separated. This allows both the radar and the cameras to get their first look at the surface. Current velocity is 145 meters per second at an altitude of about 9.5 kilometers above the surface.
Nav filter converge. Velocity solution 3.3 meters per second. Altitude 7.4 kilometers.
Now has radar lock on the ground. Current velocity is about 100 meters per second, 6.6 kilometers above the surface of Mars. Perseverance is continuing to descend on the parachute. We are coming up on the initialization of terrain relative navigation and subsequently the priming of the landing engines. Our current velocity is about 90 meters per second at an altitude of 4.2 kilometers.
OVS valid.
We have confirmation that the lander vision system has produced a valid solution and part of terrain relative navigation.
Priming. TBA is nominal.
We have priming of the landing engines.
Back shell set.
Current velocity is 83 meters per second at about 2.6 kilometers from the surface of Mars. We have confirmation that the back shell has separated. We are currently performing the divert maneuver. Current velocity is about 75 meters per second at an altitude of about a kilometer off the surface of Mars.
TRN Safety Bravo.
We have completed our terrain relative navigation. Current speed is about 30 meters per second, altitude of about 300 meters off the surface of Mars. We have started our constant velocity accordion, which means we are conducting the sky crane, about to conduct the sky crane maneuver. Sky crane maneuver has started, about 20 meters off the surface.
We're getting signals from MRO.
Tango Delta.
Touchdown confirmed. Perseverance safely on the surface of Mars, ready to begin seeking the signs of past life.
Questions to the crew. Percy landed. It's amazing. We used a system called Terrain Relative Navigation, or TRN. Got ourselves down to a pinpoint landing, amidst the hazards around us. I'm going to go into that in a bit, but it was an amazing performance of getting us down safely in the desired spot within that 4-kilometer diameter error ellipse. I did have a question, and Laura's going to go ahead and answer this at the end. If there's calcium sulfate dihydrate, we know this on Earth here as gypsum. That means that there's a lot of water right there on Mars. It's like 21% water, which is 20 times the amount of water that's in the regular Mars regolith, or the soil, which means that if you wanted to go to Mars with a human crew and get some water, you would only have to dig up a 20th of the amount that you'd need with that if you got it from the regular dirt. So you could separate out the water from the dehydrate quite easily. And what does that mean for the future exploration of Mars and the future? So let me go into terrain relative navigation. This is there's a conundrum, and that is you want to go to a very, very interesting place on Mars. The trouble is that interesting places are very dangerous. There's rocks, there's outcrops, canyon walls, riverbeds. I mean, any myriad types of hazardous terrain that could pose a problem. And but the trouble is that that's where you want to go, because that's where the water is, and if life was ever there, that's where you're going to find it. But you can't do any science if the rover can't land safely. So what you do is you use this thing called terrain relative navigation. There's the error ellipse on the in the big black circle, and beforehand you basically map out all the safe places to land. Every safe place is represented by one of those green dots. And the orbiters overhead take three-dimensional pictures. You basically pore over those and looking for any outcrops, sharp edges, rocks, dangerous pieces of terrain, soft soil. Sometimes the sand could be too soft where the rover couldn't get out. We had a problem with that before. And so this is now mapped into the lander's memory, such that during the descent, you take a picture using the camera systems you see in the upper left-hand corner. It starts taking three-dimensional images after the heat shield has come off, and you then determine where you are and what your trajectory is and where you will set down. The system then determines one of these safe places. You compare your trajectory of where you are actually going to land up, and compare that to a point on that map that we had with the green dots, and then say, okay, you've determined what the error is, and it will then steer the descent stage to one of the nearest landing zones. And it has a error correction capability of about 335 meters, about 1,100 feet. But that's enough to get you through the danger zones. So here, this particular chart shows that you can land in the blue zone, but you notice that there are blue zones safely interspaced within all of the danger zones or the red zones. Now, remember, the red zones are interesting places to go visit, but blue zones are what's safe to land on. And so it did it. And that the black dot right in the middle shows exactly where Perseverance landed. And so here's the comparison. There are the green dots on the right. Those are the safe zones, and that's exactly where Percy landed. You will notice, see if you can see my cursor here. These two craters are these two craters. So we're down in one of these little dots here. You can see this particular V-shaped feature is down over here. So we're directly above that right there. So the actual landing accuracy was designed to get us within better than 40 meters. It turns out that when the back shell came off and you heard the point where a valid solution got announced, we were, 3 or 4 kilometers up. It determined what the landing zone was and set us down within 1 pixel of the intended target, or 5 meters. We were just, that just mind-blowing to me. That it just was, that it was just that accurate. It was just absolutely amazing. And we hope you agree. Now, Perseverance is the first step of a future mission that will actually get the samples that Perseverance has collected and return them to Earth. What's going to happen is in about 2026, 2028, depending upon the Mars launch window of opportunity, a spaceship will be launched to Mars and land, and it will have on it a rocket and a rover. The rover will drop off of the landing platform, go over to the spots where Perseverance has dropped off the special tubes. They've been sealed, and basically I forgot to mention, these samples are actual rock cores. The scientists, yeah, bless their hearts, they're not happy with just dirt. They want rocks, which means you have to have a hollow drill bit to actually take a rock core, pull it out of the rock, put a special cap on it, seal it to make sure that no contaminants get in or out, and then they get deposited on Mars. And then this future mission comes along with this little itty-bitty rover, comes along and picks up those tubes and brings them back to the rocket, which then launches them in a basketball-sized sphere up into Mars orbit. Another mission comes along and grabs the basketball and puts that into a special Earth return capsule and brings that back to Earth. and then it deposits that, lands it in the desert, and we then go analyze those samples. And that mission doesn't complete until 2035, 2036, possibly as late as 2038. So, okay, and so there we are. We've landed on Mars after a journey of 300 million kilometers. We got to within 5 of where we wanted to be. So here's Shonte to talk about the instruments and everything that goes on, making sure that it's all healthy by the time we get there. Take it away.
Okay, Dave. Yeah, we're really, really excited. As Dave mentioned, we landed on Mars. We landed safely on Mars. Really excited. We have a rover that is alive. We did not leave a crater in Mars. Very, very excited. So, you know, I want to talk to you a little bit about the verification and validation we did for the instruments in getting those to Mars. Now, you may ask, what is verification, validation? Verification answers the question, did we build it right? Validation answers the question, did we build the right thing? Now, you can test as much as you want. You can do as much analysis, demonstration, inspection as you want on Earth. But the true test is when you get to Mars. Do you meet your performance? Do you get your science? How does this all work? So that's what we're going to find out shortly. But we have to be patient, because when you get to Mars, you want to go slow and steady. A lot of money, a lot of time, a lot of blood, sweat, tears. A lot of things have been invested in getting to Mars. And so you want to make sure that you don't move too fast. You don't want to sacrifice your tomorrows for a quick today. So, yeah, so just everything I do just, you know, want to give the public a heads up that it does take time to get things checked out, just to make sure that you're doing things right. So over the course of the first stall, a stall is a day on Mars. We refer to stalls. We refer to a day on Mars as stalls because they're different than, you know, a day on Earth. So actually, let me talk about that a little bit first. You know, a day on Earth is 24 hours. Now, a day on Mars is actually about 40 minutes longer than an Earth day, and we refer to it as stall. And so on the program, we have people that we call Earthlings and people that we call Martians. The people that are Earthlings work on Earth time. The people that are Martians work on Mars time. So, for instance, if you're working on Mars time, one of your shifts may start at 4 a.m., or your first shift, say it starts at 4 a.m. Your second shift would then start at your next stall day would start at 4:40, and you just keep marching 40 hours. And so you're not starting every day the same time
40
like
minutes.
you would. Yeah, and so because the rover does its thing. It's like, I'm on the surface of Mars. I wake up every stall at the same time. So Earthlings, you just better get on board, because this is how we're rolling. And so that's how the Martians roll. And so when we talk about the first stalls, we're talking about those first days on Mars, but on Mars time. And so in that time, we've done some checkouts just to make sure that, you know, upon landing, after this long journey, everything is still alive now on the surface of Mars. And so, like, for instance, on the first stall, a pyro was fired to release the remote sensing mast. And so, you know, the second day is like when you actually rotate that mast up and actually get to a point where you can take a picture. So you can see it wasn't as if we just landed the rover. All right, deploy everything, get the arms out, start drilling. No, there was some time that has to occur, you know, that has to pass while you're getting these instruments checked out. So to date, we've had an opportunity to do aliveness checks for all the instruments. All the instruments are alive. We've done some health checks. Everything so far appears to be healthy. And so we're going to be ready to start taking some science after we finish all the other checkouts. And so, you know, when we look at the instruments, actually, let's go to the next chart, Dave. Yeah, when we look at the instruments on Mars, it's one of those things where you're just like, oh my gosh, you know, it was just on the Atlo floor. You'll probably see like an image from Kobie where he's showing himself on the actual Atlo floor with the Curiosity rover, which looks very similar to the Mars 2020 rover. And it's just one of those things when you're like, wow, we were just looking at that literally on the surface of Earth. and we're checking it out, and it is on another planet. And so those are like some of those moments when you start welling up, and like when I look at this picture, it's still like, oh my gosh. But I really like this view because it's actually a nice view of the rover deck. And, you know, you can see kind of laying diagonally the the remote sensing mast. And, you know, that mast has two of our instruments. It has Mastcam-Z, the camera, one of the cameras that allows us to take panoramic views, and it's got a zoom capability, which makes it a little different than the camera we sent on the Curiosity rover. And there's the SuperCam instrument. Now, along the actual mast body, we have some of the elements that make up the Meta instrument, which is like our weather station on Mars. There are other sensors about the rover body that assist in that meteorological effort there. And on the surface there, let's see here, you can also see actually closer to the front, you can actually see the rover arm. And you see like a white rectangular looking box there, and that's actually the Pixel instrument. And on the opposite side, we have the Sherlock instrument. So there are 4 of those instruments. So now looking, I'm sorry, 5 of our instruments we've discussed. And so in the body of the rover, you can't actually see, it's the MOXIE instrument, and that's going to actually take carbon dioxide and convert that to oxygen. And so that's another way that we are preparing for, you know, being able to survive on the surface of Mars when we're able to send people. And lastly, you can't see the RIMFAX antenna, which is really cool. It's going to actually do some radar sounding as the rover traverses the surface of Mars. All right, next chart. All right, another really cool picture. We've got Pixel. I don't know who's grabbing all the images, but somebody clearly has a thing for Pixel. All right, you see that there in the upper right corner. And you can also see a little bit of sample caching back there, and just below it, you can actually see the bit carousel. Just such a really cool picture. Again, coming to you from Mars. And this is a picture that was taken with the nav cams, because at this point, you know, we haven't done all of our checkouts. We're not using the Mastcam-Z yet. So let's hit the next chart. So along the lines of checking things out, doing all of our aliveness checks, we actually start doing some calibration just to make sure that everything is ready to go. And so this is an image of Mastcam-Z looking at its calibration target. So there are 2 targets for Mastcam-Z. There's the primary target and the secondary target. And towards the back there, you can actually see another square-shaped calibration target. It's got some different elements in it, and that's actually for SuperCam. And so as we get ready to do our science, we're just making sure everything is healthy, making sure that when we're ready to check the performance, we've done all the calibrations, we've done everything, and we can have confidence in what we're actually getting back. And so this is what we're doing, getting ready to send back some great science. So again, I just ask that you guys are nice and patient with us, because we want to make sure that we do it right. We want to make sure that we don't rush and make some error that prevents us from giving that great science that prepares us for our next mission, the Mars Sample Return Campaign. We want to be able to bring those samples back to Earth and just continue in our mission to prepare for living on the surface of Mars.
Awesome. Hey, did you notice that during the landing sequence, the plumes of the descent engines were actually blowing dust toward the center of the vehicle, which is kind of scary, because it's like, you know, that's one disadvantage of skycrane. You know, the thrusters are kind of pointed away from the vehicle, but some dust still, you know, motors toward the middle, and that's where the helicopter is. You know, and so you're landing right down and, you know, smack, and all this dust is right underneath you. So we got our fingers crossed for the helicopter. We're really hoping that that's going to work. But you got to remember that Mars' atmosphere is 1/100th out of here on Earth, and so it's the equivalent of flying at 100,000 feet here, you know, on the ground. And so the air is really, really thin. And so you notice that normal helicopters don't fly that high. And so this is a very, very special helicopter. We got our fingers crossed and all the best for it, because it's going to give us awesome images. Can you imagine aerial tours, drone images of Percy as she traverses? Thank you very much, Shonte.
All right.
Hi, thanks, Dave. I'm Rhonda Morgan. I've been at JPL for 20 years, and I am delighted that I work on exoplanets. I've loved exoplanets since I was a kid, and I first saw them in Star Wars. They really sparked my imagination. So much so that I was Princess Leia for Halloween for 2 years in a row. Now, I was going to have to wait until I was 21 years old for the first exoplanet to be directly imaged, and that was really exciting. Now we know of a lot of exoplanets. In fact, here's the scoreboard of exoplanets that the director of JPL sees when he takes the elevator up to his office every morning. Well, that was back when we all still went into our offices. The number of exoplanets has updated since I took this picture 2 years ago. Now we've confirmed over 4,300 exoplanets, and there are more than 5,700 more that are waiting to get confirmed. And of all of these, we know that over 3,000 are planetary systems, so solar systems. They have more than one planet in them. There are, on average, more than one planet per star. So there are more stars in our galaxy, there are more planets in our galaxy than there are stars. Now, this changes a lot, so here's the web address, and you may just want to check it out for yourself. What does an exoplanet look like from far away? Well, here's the pale blue dot of the Earth as seen by Voyager when Voyager was out at Saturn. And so on the left, these faint stripes are the rings of Saturn, and Earth is being viewed from in them. And if we could take that light from the Earth and spread it into its rainbow, we would see these light dark stripes whose spacing tells us a lot about the molecules that are there. And we have some very interesting molecules here on the Earth. Carbon dioxide, which is also prevalent on Mars and Venus. So if we saw that, we'd know that there's an atmosphere on an exoplanet. There's also water. That's very exciting because we believe that there needs to be liquid water for life as we know it to form. And oxygen and methane are also very exciting because they are biomarkers. So I would love for us to be able to get a spectra, a rainbow like this, of another exoplanet. But it's really hard because the light from its host star just swamps that planet. It is like trying to see a firefly about 5 feet from a searchlight in New York City from here. It's really hard. We have to be able to block out the searchlight to be able to block out that host starlight. And we can do that with an eclipse. So here's a picture of an eclipse from Earth where the moon is blocking out the sun, and Jupiter and Mercury can be seen. Now, Jupiter and Mercury were there, but during the daytime, we wouldn't have been able to see them because the sun is so bright. It's just washing out their light. So here, when the moon eclipses the sun, they can be seen. So in order to be able to view this around other stars, we're going to have to create an artificial eclipse. And we can do that. One of the ways that we can do that is with a device that we call a star shade. It would be tens of meters in size, so possibly as big as half a football field. And it would fly around and fly in front of the host stars so that we can see what planets might be around that star and then look at their spectrum or their rainbows. I've spent the last 5 years working on the design of a potential future space telescope, so something like the Hubble, but a little bit bigger. The Hubble was 2.4 meters in diameter, and the HabEx design is 4 meters in diameter, so that's about the size of a big sedan. And then the star shade would be half a meter in size. Now, of course, we can't launch it that big. We have to fold it up to fit it into a rocket, and then it deploys when it gets to space. So here's an animation of what that deploying would look like. Those big petals would wrap around a central barrel, and as they unfold, there are these metal fingers in between them to keep them from nicking their edges, which have to be very precise. And after they get fully deployed, then those metal fingers fall away, and then the central disk will start to expand. And as it expands, that flattens the petals. And then on the central disk will be solar panels that will provide the energy needed for the electric propulsion system. So this isn't just animation. We've been working on it for more than 10 years. And here are some of the latest that you can see. That we're working on the central hubs and how these petals flatten out and how accurate they are when they flatten out. And then on the one on the center, on the right, we're working on the origami of that central sheet as it folds up around a barrel. And you can also see all of these strings hanging down from the ceiling are harnesses, and they are helping offload gravity so that, because we have to learn how to get this to deploy in space where there's not hardly any gravity. And that means that we also have to learn how to deploy it down here on the Earth where there is gravity. So this is an exciting technology that hopefully will be able to let us directly image a whole bunch of exoplanet systems around nearby stars in the 2035 timeframe. If you want to know more about exoplanets, like the ones that have already been discovered, and the space missions like TESS and Kepler that have already imaged them, and what's going to be happening on the James Webb Space Telescope, check out exoplanets.nasa.gov. Thank you.
That was awesome. Thank you so much, Rhonda. Okay.
Is Laura going to share her slides, or does Dave have them?
I've got them, actually. So hold on a second. Let me go to my WebEx and let me share my screen.
I just love that a little dancing gets everybody going, you know?
That's right. It's so fun.
Love it. Oh, it's such a great group. I love it.
Okay, awesome.
Okay, so I'm Laura Kerber, and like Dave said, I'm a scientist, and I study geology of the planets, the moon, the Mars, and the Earth. So if you go to my next slide, I'm going to be talking a little bit about Mars. So I know a lot of people want to go to Mars, and a lot of you out there probably among them, and myself as well. So you should know that there are certain places on the Earth that you can go that are extremely Mars-like, and it's my job to go to such places and study the same sorts of environments that we have on Mars, on the Earth, and then apply the lessons that we learn to the Mars environment. Because the places on Earth are places that not a lot of people actually go. In this particular case, we're talking about Argentina. This is the Puna region of Argentina in Catamarca. It's near the north, and it's up in the Andes. And so the field site is between 12,000 feet and 14,000 feet in altitude. And it's Mars-like because it has not a lot of oxygen. It has low pressure. It's something like 0.7 of our atmospheric pressure at sea level. And then it's got a lot of UV radiation. And so all of these things are hazards. And then we look at the landscape that's very much like Mars. If you go to the next slide. Here's an image from the Curiosity landing site, and you can see the Curiosity trek that it's been doing ever since 2011 when that last rover landed on the surface. And right now we're kind of getting close to the point of that big sort of detour around a big sand dune field, and then we're going to be heading up this giant mountain that we call Mount Sharp. And so all of these past years, we've been going through Mount Sharp that are like a lake bed, and they're mudstones and sandstones. They're telling us that in the long past, the Gale Crater used to be a lake environment. Up at the top of the image, where the changes color a little bit, is a totally different unit that we think is involved with this extremely large unit that stretches across a large part of Mars. And this is just a little bit that happens to be at the top of Mount Sharp. And it is eroded by the wind into something we call yardang. So if you go to the next slide, this particular unit has been really funny for me because it's tantalizingly close, but it's out of reach for the rover for now. It's been like slowly going there over the past many years. I did my thesis on this particular deposit, and so I'm just thinking, please, please just get to my deposit and see if my thesis was right or not. What I had assumed in my thesis is that this deposit was made out of volcanic ash coming from a giant volcano. So if you go to the next slide, you'll see, so in Argentina, there's a giant volcano, actually lots of giant volcanoes, and it put out a huge pyroclastic flow, and then that flow was eroded by the wind into these things called yardang. Yardang is just a stream-aligned, wind-eroded hill. And so you can see these are pretty enormous. There's all of us in the picture. And the crazy place about this thing about the environment is that we are really the only living, visible living things in this picture. Even if you look out to the distant mountains, there's no grass, there's no plants, no animals living in this area. So you just go to the next slide. The other Mars-like thing about this area.
Next slide.
Let's see. Yeah, the next slide.
Yep. That one?
That is. Yep. So the other Mars-like thing about this area is the enormous dust devils. We see tons of dust devils on Mars, and lots in Gale Crater where Curiosity is. And this area of Argentina has some of the tallest, largest dust devils on Earth, and they're really like a tornado. There's actually a person in this picture, but they're really hard to see. They're extremely small. So this is a huge dust devil. We actually got hit by one of them, and it almost took us down. You know, we just completely bombarded with sand. Next slide. Sometimes the wind gets so great that you get a big dust storm, and this region in Argentina is one of a major dust storm for most of the South American plains, like the Pampas region where they grow a lot of agriculture. A lot of that fine dust comes out of this region from the wind blowing it. So there's actually a person in this picture too, really small. Our student Dylan is in this picture, just being completely bombarded.
Is that him right here?
Yeah, that's him. So next slide. The result of all of this erosion by the wind is pretty amazing. It's a lot different than anywhere you might go. What you see here is that you have this volcanic unit, and within the volcanic unit there's like little pebbles and pumices and different kinds of rock. When the sand comes along and sandblasts it, that pebble is stronger than the rest of the rock, and the rest of the rock behind it gets eroded. So right here, the wind is coming from the left-hand side and just eroding something like 15 centimeters of rock, just leaving what we call a dado, which means finger, pointing in the direction of that the wind was coming. And the next slide. So this, I said that almost nothing lives in this region. In the picture I showed, there was pretty much nothing, but if you look in the other direction, there is one mysterious organism that lives in this area, and it's called a stromatolite. Stromatolites were very common, ancient Earth. They're some of the first life forms that we have evidence existed, and nowadays they only live in very, very few places on the Earth, because anything that likes to eat things would like to eat these stromatolites. So it can survive here in the high Arctic plains because the UV light is so great, it kills almost every other plant, and it's so salty that things that like to graze on things won't come anywhere near these stromatolites. So we're really hoping, as we get to Perseverance, is in a big lake, is in a big crater where there used to be a big lake. Some of the things we're looking for signs of life would be things like these stromatolites, maybe fossilized stromatolites. If you go to the next picture, if you see here, you can see these little footprints inside the stromatolite microbial mats, and that's the other thing that lives up in the Argentinian tuna, which I don't know if you can guess what it is, but they're flamingo footprints. So flamingos happen to live, be basically the only other thing that lives up here besides these little algal mats, which the flamingos eat. And if you go to the next slide, so my personal experience on this Mars environment was that I got hit by a dust devil, I got burned by the UV rays, and then also at one point, I had basically a combination of altitude sickness and heat stroke, and I didn't have enough oxygen. Luckily, we have a great safety plan. We had a satellite phone. I was able to call the car to drive here into these Yardangs, so I had to walk all the way out, helped by all my buddies, and they sat me in the back of a car, and I sucked on a bunch of oxygen for a couple of hours until I felt better. And it really made me think what it was like to be an astronaut, because you're in quite a place that's not very friendly towards you, and you don't have enough oxygen, and you have to protect your skin, and things can go wrong. And that's why NASA always has a lot of plans and then backed up by a lot of backup plans. So with that, I will leave you with a video that I made of our adventure. It has some science in it and lots of beautiful views of the landscape, and I will let you watch it.
Yeah, that was awesome. That was absolutely awesome. So actually, Laura, in a private email, you said that there was gypsum on Mars, both in the anhydrate and the dihydrate form. Where did that come from? And you know, after millions of years, why did the water just leave the gypsum? That's
Well, yeah, it's pretty weird. So we have a lot of evaporite minerals on Mars, meaning that they were laid down as a body of water evaporates.
Right.
So, for example, if you have sulfur or sulfur dioxide in the atmosphere, or just sulfur from volcanic rocks, then as the lake evaporates, then you get all these minerals that remain. And what David's talking about is sometimes the minerals are hydrated. They have H2Os attached to their structure, and sometimes all the H2O is gone. So if you take something like gypsum, which has a bunch of H2Os in the structure, and you heat it up just a little bit, then you can drive off those H2Os. And that's what he was talking about. You can use those. You can drink them. You can make oxygen. You can make rocket fuel, etc. So people are really excited about that. And what we see in a lot of places on Mars, especially in Valles Marineris, is a bunch of repeating patterns where you have what looks like not hydrated minerals, sulfates, and then partially hydrated sulfates, and then polyhydrated sulfates, and they kind of go back and forth between them, and we don't know why they haven't dehydrated over the years, and we don't know why they're laid down in the layers. All of these things are things that we're trying to learn. They were really exciting.
Well, yeah, because it's one of those things where that's evidence of what sedimentary rocks, and that's where the water was. So that could be possibly where your life is going to be. So that's the exciting part too.
The reason that we chose Jezero Crater to go to is because it is a lake and has a big delta, and it puts down really small layers of sediment over long periods of time. And so anything living near that delta, if it can come down in from the river, it can come from the river it comes from, and then it gets into the lake, and then it's buried and preserved. And that's why we're hoping that we would find evidence of ancient life either living in the lake or transported to the lake, and then most importantly, preserved for all these billions of years afterwards.
Yeah, so it sounds exciting. I mean, you know, and the thing is that if I want to find the dihydrate for rocket fuel, it's like, am I going to be destroying fossils from millions of years ago? You know, it's like, yeah, on the one hand, I need it for rocket fuel, but yeah, am I destroying evidence of life there? You know, it's like, it seems like a conundrum.
We look at it pretty carefully before we allowed people to take it out of it.
Yeah. But the beauty of it is that, you know, as I was mentioning before, I mean, it's like 21% of the volume or mass. I can't remember if it's volume or mass, but it's water, which means that the amount of mineral that you have to mine is a 20th of regolith. I mean, regular regolith, you know, has maybe 1% water, and the dihydrate is like 21% water, and so, gosh, I mean, it's like a 20-to-1 gear ratio on what you have to mine. So yeah, you land there, you get the dihydrate, and man, there's your return fuel supply. And you're breathing oxygen. So colonizing Mars, there you go.
No.
Well, not in my lifetime, Kobie, but
let's keep Earth. Let's keep Earth. Like, you know, that's the point. Keep Earth. Earth is really nice. We live here.
Earth
Nothing
is the
lives
best.
on Mars at the moment.
Well, listen, just wanted to thank everybody in the audience for joining us today. There is a lot of information on the mars.nasa.gov website. There is a Twitter feed. As of today, a week after the landing, there was a Reddit question and answer period that you can actually go in and ask the engineers on Percy things that are going on. Hopefully, by the time you see this, they will still be answering questions. If not, still, thank you very much. Again, from the bottom of our hearts. I've been doing this for 43 years now, and every time you wake up to go to work, it's like, what? They're paying me to do this. It's amazing. So thank all of you for all that you do, and thank you very much for your support. Much appreciated.
Hello, my name is Kobie Boykins. I'm a mechanical engineer in Massachusetts. Here is a picture of me in the highway. Now, this isn't what Shonte showed you. This isn't a Perseverance rover that we just landed on the surface. This is actually a picture of Curiosity back a few years ago. By the way, I wanted to show sort of the idea that as the engineering team, we get to be around these vehicles, we get to look at these vehicles, we get to sort of grow with them. As Shonte talked about, and what we're doing to check out the vehicle on the surface of Mars. If we do some of that here on Earth. But what I really want to talk to you about is sort of my cat. So this is me in the high bay at the Jet Propulsion Laboratory. The next image is one of my favorites. Sort of come back to space. There's Hubble's deep white rover. But what's amazing to me about this particular image, why I love it so much, is that every speck of light that you see is another galaxy, another cluster of millions of stars. And every time I look at it, it just sort of continues to remind me and inspire me, put me in awe of what we get to do as human beings by sending things out into our solar system and with Voyager, for those, even past our sun. Here's just a representation of Earth and Mars. This is actually to scale. So Mars is about a third the size of Earth, which means it's about a third of gravity, but it's the fourth rock from the sun, so it's a little further colder on the surface. here's the places that we've landed on the surface. You know, we talked a lot about landing successfully, and if you got to watch Perseverance landing, you've seen that video at the beginning. You saw how excited we were. You know, there's still a greater than, much greater than non-zero chance that we won't make it to the surface successful. And internationally, the odds are that we wouldn't make it successfully. Right now, with all the success that we've had over the last, let's say, 2 decades, the numbers are still sort of staggering to make it successfully. That number's like 60-40. So 60% of the time, we don't make it. We're not successful. 40%. And these are the places that we've had vehicles from the United States land on the surface of Mars. Here's a picture of, this is actually a Spirit rover on the surface of Mars. This goes back quite a ways, but I wanted to show it because I asked the mechanical engineer that built the solar grid, and it's always fun to show the hardware, so now I want to talk to you guys some of the things that happen while we're on the surface. With Curiosity, one of the things that actually occurred as we were driving, we started to punch holes in the roof. Maybe some of you saw this at the beginning, sort of the backstory of what's going on. We were driving over these rocks that they call benthic rocks that look like mastodon teeth that are sharp. These are wind-blown rocks that actually, as they grow, they become very, very sharp. And as the rover was driving, the telemetry we were getting back from the rover, the current, the displacement of the wheels, etc., didn't tell us anything about these types of things happening. We actually saw this in imagery that was sort of by happenstance. We were taking some imagery close up on the surface and see the middle wheels in that imagery, and then we saw these sort of holes. And then we started to track these holes. And as you can see here, there's a nice big ugly hole here in the middle. That's pretty bad, but not horrible. But these cracks are what we were really worried about. And so what do we do? I'll show you a couple other images as we zoom in on that big hole. And then we'll go to, you can even see, you can even see places where we actually picked up rocks. The rocks actually got embedded within our wheels. You can see that this piece of aluminum that's folded down here, this is very worrisome because we were worried as it came around it could cut this cable. If it cut that cable, that means all the electrical power that's going to actually stop, and then we would have the wheel. So we started to do some testing, and what we did is we took a vehicle that we have here on Earth, looks like Curiosity. We changed the mass. Remember I told you about the mass. We changed that now for the gravity. We changed the mass of the vehicle here on Earth, and more or less what we do is we take out the brain. We call it Scarecrow. Brain. And we drive that around. Now we're going to drive that around on rocks that we've made up to see what happens. And this is what we can see. We can actually really, it's totally destroyed one. And we wanted to figure out how long is that in driving, what would we learn from doing it, and can we figure out how to drive in a mode where our wheel looks as bad as the one on the right. The reality is that we did, we found a way out. But for now Perseverance, we needed to figure out a way to not have this happen to our wheel. And if you look at the wheel on the surface of Mars, this is a picture from just recently, you can actually see that we actually updated and redesigned the wheel. Shonte Tucker was the person who designed the wheel the last time, and now this time it's Patrick DeGrosse. And you can see that we've changed the form of the wheel, we've changed some of the thickness of the wheel, but changing that thickness of the wheel makes the vehicle heavier, which means that we sort of had these, because Curiosity and Perseverance are more or less sisters. They're twins, really. Just born, some number of years apart. But we had to change some things because we saw that damage in the wheel. And I sort of wanted to give you guys a sense of some of these things that we do, and when we see something, how we can incrementally modify the vehicle to be a better vehicle on the surface of Mars. So this is one of the ways that we've done it. You can see the changes that we've done to the wheel. And then some of the things that some things we can do with the wheel, you can see on the left of the trench. We can go up there and we can actually make the trench. And this was sort of for fun because all you can see this looks like on the moon. But we actually do make trenches, and then we take our science investigation and we can go up there and actually look at the changes in salinity of the dirt, which is what Spirit did. In this particular case, we're actually looking at what we've disturbed in the soil to see differences in salinity in our location for Curiosity. We'll probably do this with Perseverance as well. So now just a couple reading things. Video of Perseverance on the turntable, which is how we do our own inertia and our gravity. From this, we can actually, through that landing sequence that you saw, we actually have to know what we call the mass properties of the vehicle very, very well to actually land as well as we did. So this is one of the ways we learn that information, and we actually have the vehicle actually. And then the last image that I have here is us on the surface. And there's a rover in the clean room, and here's now a rover Perseverance on the surface. And one of the things that most people miss is you can see those little pebbles that got on the top of that after that big, huge dust cloud. This rover was in, and landed with that really cool, new, awesome video that we have. Anyway, with that, I want to say thank you, and I hope you guys enjoy it. you like that, Dave?
So once again, thank you very much. If you have any more questions, I know things are happening rapidly. To the last of my knowledge, JPL has a Twitter feed at Twitter NASA JPL. Also, as of today, there was a Reddit question feed where you can actually go and ask questions of the Mars team, mars.nasa.gov. and see if they can actually get your questions answered. We'd like to thank you for everything that you've done today. We hope you've enjoyed yourself. And it's been an amazing journey for me to have worked at such a wonderful place and being, well, okay, I'm a nerd. And but thank you. Look, I mean, look at all this wonderful stuff that we have to share with you, and it's been our pleasure to do this. And once again, thank you so much.